So I'm assuming I'm not calling the meeting order yet.
No, I am.
Is Scott gonna be here tonight? Weird.
What?
Is Judy gonna be here tonight? Do we have comments as part of our board, as far as just open comments? Would we do it under public comment here or the second public comment here?
If it's dealing with what we have as business, then
We'll
it's
do it
from
as we
four.
go.
It's, yeah, if it's something totally different. Okay. Hey, I'll call the meeting to order for June 17th of the Water Sub-Planning Committee or Water Committee. Roll call. And I can't remember, like county calls that out, they call it. Do we just call it in our case?
Everybody's here.
I'll just say, okay, yes. Jeff Carey's here.
Scott Gordon.
Jim Pringer.
Okay, all are present. Jim has something under public comment, he wanted to say under the public comment, so.
Yeah, so there was in the email that got sent out reminding us of the meeting that it was like maybe we'll have one every quarter or something. I wanted to say that, which is fine. I'm in on that. Hey, whatever you guys want to do, but I'm saying with the infancy of the water system with Jeff Carey's and the Port of Allyn's bonding together, there's potential of a well that's going in or trying to. And just the basics of the water system, I think there's plenty to have just general discussion once a month about what's going on. I'm sure there's a comp plan. I'm sure there's engineering that is happening to form these two systems together and in general, everything else. So, but if you don't want to do that, and you want to do it every quarter, hey, I'm okay with that too. Or third option is just call us if you need something. We can do it that way too. But I believe there's probably enough to have one once a month, just in general, to talk about what brand of water meters, what's happening here, how about this, how is this getting tied together, have us overlook some of this stuff a little bit. But that's my opinion, and that's what I wanted to say. So,
Thank you. I totally agree that once a month, even if it's just general, 30 minutes. Since it has to be a public meeting, we meet here, but that's fine. There are plenty of things that are happening with the water system.
Yeah, it's whatever. I'm curious, whatever. I mean, if there's nothing to discuss. I mean,
If I may,
Sure.
let's move that to item
Six.
6 where we actually discuss it.
Okay,
And
sure.
I can give you some of the reasons why I put it on the agenda.
Got it.
Perfect.
Thank you. And do we need to adopt agenda in yours or?
It's a special meeting. The agenda is what it is.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Regular meetings, you have to adopt.
Okay, fair. Appreciate that. Okay, number 4, discussion recommendations of the newly drafted water policy and rate schedule. So would you like to just kind of come down this page by page or first hit the water rates and then the water policy manual?
You can go through it however you want. I'm going to be prepared to take comment notes on one document so that I can send that one document
Okay.
to the lawyers.
Okay, well, let's begin. I always just like beginning with the toughest one first. So might as well hit the policy manual.
You want to go in numerical order? So
Yeah.
Section 1, yeah. I assume there's no issues with the acronyms and standard, the definitions, terms and the,
No, except I think there's some more that need to go in. There was an acronym we used and I had to go back further back up in the text to figure out what it was. I don't have a note of it right in the moment, but yes, as far as what's there, fine. And obviously, from my standpoint, it's way further ahead than where we were, so we're going in the right direction.
Okay, so we're on the water system policy manual, is
Right.
that correct?
Right,
And we're on the terms and definitions, correct?
right.
I had one that I wanted to
Yeah.
ask about.
No,
Um,
this is kind of gonna be a little bit free flowing because we're gonna come down through this.
which one is it?
Building supply line.
I don't have.
So
Sorry.
we have the building supply line, but then if you look at service line lateral, it basically talks about its service line lateral is the pipe connecting the port's point of delivery, which would be our meter, to the customer's plumbing system. Service line, that's correct. But you also have a building supply line, the pipe carrying potable water from the water meter or other source of the water supply to a building or the point of use distribution on the lot. I'm like, I don't know if we need a building supply line when we actually have the service line lateral, which is a lot more simpler. And I've never heard of a building supply line. And I think
And is the other terms lateral supply line?
it's a service line / lateral. I think we can get rid of building supply line, but it's just opinions. But I think everything else is pretty straightforward. And I'll be honest, a lot of districts don't have this in depth of the acronyms and the definitions and stuff.
Sure.
They don't, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a duplicate. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that makes,
But for a community homeowner trying to do their own stuff, having those definitions for things we.
Oh, yeah.
To me, is kind of great. I mean, some of this stuff kind of meant for builders, but if you're a homeowner trying to do things
Sure.
yourself,
Oh, I
some of
think
this
it's
stuff being
fine.
in plain terms is
no,
pretty good.
as far as the
I
rest,
agree.
yeah, I didn't see any others that would definitely, all that's there is fine. And there might be one or two more that creep in, but that can come in later.
Sure.
So that would be my 2 bits on the,
Like,
definitions.
wrong on the service
No.
line, you guys
No.
okay with that?
I've never used the word building line. I've always service line. I don't know, in your system, probably service line also.
Yeah. Service line. Well, I mean, our service line to, I guess, us would be our line serving the meter, and then we call it the residential service line. So we got kind of both.
We call it customer service.
Customer service line.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, anything else on the definitions or?
No, I thought it was great. I thought it was very in depth. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'll take us right to section 1. I don't see anything on 1.1. Anybody?
No.
On 1.2, the only reason I highlighted this is some of the issues that occurred prior to your Travis, before you became a commissioner or a director. And I'm a little, as far as yours concerned, I don't have any problem with this. The problem is that with the last administration, I have a little problem because that's what got us into trouble. Where the director made a call and it never went up the chain, so to speak. There's the second line where the.
Oh, yeah. I'm with
I
you,
didn't catch
Jeff.
that. I didn't catch that either.
No,
I don't
I'm
think,
with
I
you.
don't think the director should
Basically,
have
the
that authority.
meat and potatoes of that says the course of executive may, all the way down to as delegated by the commission is the issue portion.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, I don't have any problem with you making, or any director making a decision, but I think it needs to come up the chain first before it occurs, because ultimately the commission's responsible.
I agree with you. That's why there's a policy to start with, and
Yeah,
and the manager needs to follow the policy.
And that's-
then
and that's
he
what-
needs to go to-
that's what, and we have a live example where that, if it didn't work that way, where it went horribly the other
I
way.
agree with you. And at the end of the day, these are all just suggestions.
Yeah,
But I agree with you.
And tell me when you're free, Travis. And I'm not trying to press you or anything, I just. Or do you want, do you want? Oh,
We want this to have a stronger
commissioner presence.
commissioner presence and adhesion to the policy. So if the director wants to go outside the policy.
Yeah,
let's go to the
if you wanna waive something, which I see situations all the time like that, but you need, yeah, you need the check and balance.
But don't just take that whole part out and just have the first sentence and the last sentence, and that cover it?
Ask them.
If you just have the first sentence and last sentence, take that whole middle body out, you just have the port provides water service in compliance with the port's policies, applicable local, state, and federal law. And then your next sentence would be, the
Yeah,
commission may adjust other standard fees and charges from time to time as it deems necessary and appropriate.
There,
It
I
just
mean,
takes-
they might want to add some more to it in the sense of the being clear that the commission has to approve changes to the policy.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
That-
but I mean, I could side with what Scott's saying.
I'll strike that out and leave the note and see what
Yeah.
you say.
Yeah, and obviously this is going back before the attorneys, right? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you just add with their approval, that's the thing with the commission, and somewhere there, add with their
Yeah.
approval into that.
and, oh, I know why I highlighted in 1.3, because in the middle there, you have something kind of like that already starting to form there, where it says, you have no promise, agreement, or representation made by a port employee that isn't contrary to the written policies shall be binding on the port, fine. Unless affirmed in writing by the commission during it. That literally is what I'm looking for. And the both sides, in other words, the 1.2 and what you have there in 1.3.
It's distracting, so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the entire policy and amendments.
So in the middle there, after where it says no, it starts the third line, no promise.
Yeah, agreement.
And see where you get in there a little ways, it says, okay, where then it says that is commission, or wait, let's see, hold on. That is contrary to the written policy shall be binding on the port unless affirmed in writing by the commission during L, and I put parentheses, I added this is why I had to look and see my notes, which way I do that. I added this note saying during a regular port commission meeting,
At what point did you add
right after commission. And I don't mean to be nitty gritty on this, but it's just for the rest of you, the only, we're a little sensitive because of things that happened here in the past.
it?
And
We need this nitty gritty.
yeah, yeah.
You can have a policy, let's get a policy.
Okay, so 1.4, I'm fine. 1.5, fine. And stop me if anybody has anything.
No, I said, go down to where you got.
Okay, I'm good all the way till we get to 1.8, so I'm good with 1.6, 1.7.
Yep.
Let's see what, let me see what I was saying here. There's a little, okay, the last sentence, I'm a little confused with what we're trying to do here.
Me too.
No, the last sentence of,
1.8.
1.8
Or
dot one, two.
yes, I'm sorry. Yes, .1,
Last sentence,
yes.
this policy will determine the cost sharing of new facilities and the executive shall make cost sharing decisions using this policy as a guide.
I've never seen that terminology
Can
before.
I just delete that whole,
What would be
No.
cost sharing? I don't,
I don't know. The only thing that comes close to that is latecomers.
I think it can
I did delete the whole thing, I think delete that out.
be.
And I'm fine with deleting it out also. When you're ready, Travis. Or I'll assume watching you that when you're scanning.
I look at you again?
Yeah. That's fair.
Won't even attempt to regale you with the last few weeks. All right, next.
1.8.2, I'm fine. 1.8.3. You mentioned, this is maintenance sources. So like H2O, they're a private company. So you have, the way they put the writing is Mason County or other public entities. So wouldn't it be public and private or commercial or something?
Or other public or.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But this is just referring to interlocal agreements for maintenance. I guess you don't really have an interlocal agreement with a private entity. Only public,
Is that the only place they can?
yeah, you have contract with a private entity.
Okay.
So
That's
this is
fine.
just covering interlocal agreements.
Well, I can use the
There,
education too.
You'll notice, in the very end of the, water policy, there used to be a section 6, it's gone.
Right.
And that was the satellite management portion of
Okay,
the
fine.
policy. It was like 6 pages of what they didn't think was necessary, and they literally put it into a paragraph.
And that's fine because there's a separate contract for that
Correct.
whole service, and that's fine.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, then going on to section 2. I'm good till we get to 2.2.2. Private people can't read their own meter. I mean,
You're at 222, is that where you're at?
yeah, the first line, only authorized employees or agents of the port are permitted to read. I mean, I know what the intent is.
Yeah, to stay out of the box.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter, they can,
But people look at meters to know where they are in the bill,
it should be limited down to just turn on or off or.
But see,
Because right now,
but see, their responsibility, starts on the other side of that meter too.
well, the other issue is that if they have an emergency and you're set up the way the system's set up, the only way they can shut their water off the main is to get in that box.
Right.
Unless they have their own separate shut off,
Which
which they should have,
yes.
but that doesn't mean they do.
That's the question I have. Does the port of Allyn have an emergency number after hours to respond to that? Most water districts do. And that, I would tell them, hey, if your house is flooding and you can shut it off, I'm on my way, this and that. But do we respond to those calls?
Yeah, it's my personal cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will also reiterate, there wasn't really there. I believe that the previous administration was the previous director's phone number, or there was a secondary number of the water management. So
I'll be honest, I got through about 2/3 of this, and then so far I have not seen an on-call section in the policies and stuff. Is that in here?
I don't remember seeing
I
it.
don't see it either.
Okay,
So that would be something that we could add.
make a note, or somebody make a note, because I don't have a note like that. I'm actually looking at the
If it was
language.
if it was an on-call section, should it be in the general terms, conditions, policy section 2? Does that seem like the appropriate place to put
At
it?
this moment, yes. I would
So what
say,
I will do is I will make one at the very end of the section. The easiest place to add one.
It should be pretty simple, but
Yeah.
there's 24-hour service,
Right.
and
Can that just be under your report employees under section 2.2.2 as far as basically just put the port will designate an employee or their designee as an on-call emergency contact?
yeah, something like that, absolutely. But I agree with you, Jeff, that we probably need to deal with, they could certainly read their meter.
Yeah.
I got no problem with them
Right.
open the lid, read the meter.
right.
So somehow that needs to probably get verbiage. But turning on and off is a problem because they tend to break stuff and
Yes,
this and
yes.
that, and that's a problem.
Yes.
You know, we build time and materials when that happens.
They can only observe. In other words, you can open the meter box only to observe.
So what should we call that section? Call, emergency, or
Emergency contact?
emergency contact?
And probably that's something that needs to be kind of in a lot of different places, probably, because when all hell breaks loose, you don't want it in the contract where somebody is trying to look into, figure out who to.
Is that on the website somewhere?
And I don't know for sure. I know it's with locate companies. I fixed all that. But I don't believe it is. And that should be just another note for the website.
Well, that's one of those things too. If you're the on-call guy, it's sometimes tough to have your phone number listed right there in the middle of something, because then they find a phone number. I know I am, but once I dive into a website, I can find one phone number, I find a phone number to call. I call whatever that phone number is and try to figure out who I'm trying to contact. But
So the way I've got it set up is that it's my number and it's also your Noble's number.
okay.
So there's a redundancy there as well.
Does Macecom have your information too?
I don't
As
know
far
if
as there's
they-
a water issue?
I don't know if they officially do. That's another good point. Let me write that
I
down.
mean, it's just something that someday to give a call there and see if they have your emergency contact for the port. So I've had people call 911 for issues before, and somehow they tracked me down. I think I've given my number before, saying, "Hey, I'm the Toronto Falls guy. If there's a problem with Toronto Falls,
I know that my number is the emergency number. Or they may not put two and two together.
It's water." Cause I think Belfair Water, at least they used to have my name too, because a lot of times we would call the Belfair Water District and try to stack stuff down for Toronto Falls. And a couple times I've gotten calls from, "Hey, somebody's calling for something. We don't do that." Years ago, for a short time, they did some work in our
Right.
kind of like on call or did something.
They get a lot of calls down for Beards Cove and everybody else around there. Yeah, a lot.
I'm looking for his eyes. Good question, because this kind of deals with requirements in the state code, Department of Health, and then what we have here in the contract. On 2.2.3, limitations of water service, where it says, second line, the port does not guarantee constant pressures or uninterrupted flow. I'm a little confused on that, because I understand the word guarantee. I can understand legally why the port may not want to guarantee. But at the same time, in the Department of Health regs, there's the requirement to have such and such pressure, all the time.
Pretty balanced.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with what it's written here, basically, because wells go down, there's main breaks
Right.
and stuff. We can't,
Yeah.
we cannot guarantee it 24/7. We just can't. We try, everybody here tries.
Right.
And the bulk of it, we do. But there's
Right.
things that happen to where we
Yeah.
have to shut down the main or something. And I think that's all it's trying to say is that,
That's my only question. In other words, I'm not for or against one way or the other. Just want to make sure that if there's this, if there's regs that say you're supposed to do this, and we say we're not guaranteeing it, legally, what's, without getting too nitty gritty, what, and whatever they say, fine.
maybe we just take out the guarantee in this and that.
I would just say to Travis, ask the attorney side of the equation. In other words, if they say leave it, fine. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I'm not married to it one way or the other. Just it comes up, it's kind of a
I look at it as more of a throwing them for liability purposes.
yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah. You fall back on it and you can't blame them, but well, it's right here and here.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't guarantee it. And it's that way it falls back as a.
Yeah,
I get it. I just want to make
The regulation for pressure comes from the WAC. There's a difference.
I can't probably
Yeah.
probably.
It is 30?
Yeah.
I thought it was 24. It's 30?
I think it's 30, like $5.
Well, I saw.
Yeah, I thought
I never
one-
heard of
I thought it was
24.
24. I thought it was number 24.
No, but when you open up a fire flow, I thought it was 20.
Yes, I believe that there is that with
Yeah,
the fire
yeah.
stuff. Yes, I
Yeah.
believe that. Yes, I believe 20, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Which the board already has a problem with two or three houses, which we'll fix in time. So, okay, you're still working that, okay. And whenever you're ready. And interrupt me if there's anything I'm going over anything.
No, I know, I totally agree with you. I got something on 226. Yeah, no, you're doing fine. Jeff.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to do in the meeting, check the Zoom to see if anybody was.
No,
Yeah, the public comments.
We're pretty boring.
No, not on this one. They may on rates. They will on rates. But if you want to get participation, just talk rates.
Talks about 20 PSI.
I think that's during fire
Right.
situation.
Right.
really.
That's what it is.
Okay, so we hit the first paragraph of 2.2.3. Question on the dealing with 2.2.3, second paragraph, midway through during the peak season where you might require people to adjust. I wonder if you just leave that wide open for the year. The reason I say that is my experience when I was running my water system is, especially with the younger crowd, some of my heaviest usage was from December 15th to January 15th. Football games, basketball games, whatever else. Had some pretty heavy usages during the holidays. So
Do you want to do away with during peak season months? Is that
Yeah.
what you-
Or you can leave.
Board may implement water.
yes,
There you go.
Sure.
yeah.
So
Down to 2.2.4. We, what else? Do we have all the fines? Or I see we have some. It more or less hourly works. Do we even have fines in here? The rate schedule?
You mean a tampering fee? I don't remember that. There's
Well, in other words, you just have this unauthorized water use and then, you know, the port assess fines as set forth in the rate schedule, and then look at the rate schedule and then.
yeah, there should be a tampering.
That can usually add it.
Well, that's makes sense. That's one of the things I have for a couple things I have for the rate schedule. So there's, no, that stuff's not on there. The fines, the interest rate for non-payment, rebilling fees, where you have, I saw that somewhere, but it's not listed. I mean, it should be listed under the water service fees, I think.
Right, no, I agree. And obviously, we can make recommendations, but any of the fines have to go through the board to adopt. Whatever that might be.
My little district charged $250 for tampering fee.
See the reason why I can't start there.
We charge 500.
So it's 500. So, but yeah, we charge 250. Okay.
So,
Tampering.
so. In the 2.2.4 is fine, the language, but
So what
our rate schedule doesn't have it, so we need to.
does the committee suggest go big or go home or back to 250?
Well, I've
You've never had
I think I've only used it once,
seems like a big stick measure.
but usually what
To keep
happens,
people-
yeah, I've heard of it done before. I've heard of people and other like Beards Cove and stuff, and other ones where people go to their neighbor's house, the neighbors will let them hook
Right,
onto the water system,
Yeah.
and then we're in a hose
Yeah.
and then backfeed their system to the
Yeah.
neighbors. So if I saw that happen, that would be one place where I would actually find somebody for that. But I've never really had to. But it's something you would probably want to have in there just because. I would think.
well, and the problem we have with the Flat of Allen with the houses being so tight. We've seen,
It's really easy to do.
yeah,
Well, we should have an actual policy tampering section. Because there should be a little protocol on how to do it. You
Right.
should have a tag. We have a nylon tag, that says $250 tampering fee, do not turn on, and we zip tie the meter stop off. So what happens is somebody cuts the zip tie and turns it on, tampering fee, but we check it the next day.
Right.
And then at that point, we put another tag on it and we put a padlock on it.
I read that somewhere.
So then what happens is they
Yeah.
cut the ears off or cut the padlock
Yeah.
off and another fee. And then we put a special lock on it over the top and put another padlock on it. And then we pull the meter. That's our third step. We pull the meter. So then at that point, they'll put a jumper in
yeah, right.
and then they cut our lock again. So at that point, they make what they call a McGuard. And we put a McGuard lock in there. It's recessed in there. It's a very special key like the old mag wheels.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes in there and it's very hard to get off. Pretty much stops. But it's normally about a 4 or 5 step process for a guy if he's really committed on getting water. So there probably needs to be a section, but.
I know. I read it somewhere. It said basically that you'll put a lock on it or you'll take the meter out or something like that.
So the unauthorized use of water section clearly defines that there is a fee for anyone using, obtaining water without authorization.
Right, that's 2224,
Yeah,
right?
right. And that, it doesn't say tampering in there, but it's describing tampering.
Well, tampering, are you?
Because it's,
Because
should
then
any
you need-
unauthorized person obtain or use water, or assesses a fine based on the rate schedule.
Or tampering with the portable water.
But then you need to clarify that back in your definitions, what you're including as tampering or whatever, however you're calling it out. So that it's not, I don't care how you define it, you know, whether it's tampering or misuse or whatever, but.
It says here, the port will assess fines
Right.
as set forth in the port's rate schedule.
That's not there yet.
All right.
And that would be a tampering fee in the rate schedule, and then add tampering as a definition.
Well, tampering or unauthorized connection fee.
Right, it can be the definition.
Unauthorized use.
Yeah,
And that's what 224.
but I'm saying if you have unauthorized use already, you can add the word tampering to the definition. You see where I'm going? I'm not adding more words, I'm adding more text. I don't have the definitions because my printer failed.
So yeah, a tampering or unauthorized use fee.
So in the definitions, there should be a definition of unauthorized use.
And then we need to, along with this, have an update to our fee schedule with these fees.
The tampering.
And,
What do we suggest for?
well, I think minimally you start with 250, and if it happens again, then it's, there's two situations. One is a situation where they keep accelerating the problem.
Right.
Yeah, the second one, when you start doing that, when somebody starts doing that, then you go grand.
Whoa. I don't know.
I said, and my opinion is just put $500.
Okay,
It's
fine.
up to whoever decide you did it one time. We're gonna give you a warning or whatever, you're gonna do, or gonna give you a fine. It's, they're
It's
deciding.
just 500 every time. They
500.
continue to escalate it at 500.
$500.
Okay, I'm fine.
But at
with
some point, you're gonna take the whole meter off and just take everything out.
I've had one that's in use now that we had to put concrete over the top. The meter stopped off and put concrete top. That's how aggressive it got, but,
Wow. Wow. That's a
Yeah.
yes.
it gets kind of real, so.
Yeah.
Well, okay, $500, it covers you if you have to send someone out there really to pop the meter out or put a lock on it. It
Yeah,
helps cover that.
I would say $500 for each offense.
There, I'm fine. Are you fine with that?
Yep.
Okay, all three of us are fine with that. That's something you're gonna have the board approve. because
Sure.
Not, I'm mentioning just Travis.
So 500 on
Each
Yep.
offense.
each offense. Which should also denote that, after the second offense or the third, on the third offense, you just remove water service. You can't just keep tampering and tampering.
Yeah, you would pull the meter. Pull the meter in, but you still gotta check it.
Yeah.
We check it the next day. We got something like that. And it happened.
Don't have anything for 2.2.5.
No.
2.2.6. I heard you mention something.
Yeah, I had something, so I briefly read through this, so it's very common to have a second fee, so if somebody's building their home and they're building a little mother-in-law place or something like
Right.
that. They have one meter, they buy one 1-inch meter or whatever it is.
Right,
They run a line between the two buildings.
right,
Now, it is extremely common to have a secondary, I can't remember what they call it, dwelling fee.
right.
And that's like $30 or something a month. That's fine. I don't see, this is like, no, can't do that. No, can't have.
No, I get it.
I don't see any reason that they can't. It's their meter. They want to put 2, 3 houses on it, fine, but we're gonna charge an extra fee. Whatever that fee might be, you're gonna pay for an extra home. We're still collecting for the water. It's still going through the meter, and we're gonna get a secondary dwelling. Somebody with what, I can't remember.
Well, what the county calls is the accessory dwelling.
But here, this is saying, oh, you can't do that. No, 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 no. But somebody's got a garage or something that they wanna run a line over, all that's normal.
Yeah.
I really don't have any problem with it, as long as it goes through the meter, we're collecting for the meter, and, oh, you got a second home or something on there? Second home, then, hey, we're gonna get you 30, 40 bucks a month, whatever that is.
Right.
Okay, so additional structure on the same property isn't an issue. But extending the line from one property to another is.
Yes.
Yeah, the way I read it is if you had an ADU, you could do that.
But we
You just
need
can't, you just
to-
can't, you can't move, just go to, from one lot to the other.
Right, but it doesn't show anywhere in the fees or anything that there's, if you're on the same property.
Right.
And there's a mother-in-law house there, we're not collecting any extra money, and we
Sure.
should be.
Just can't
on
collect
that.
something.
Right, and the other thing is, you're right, it should not go from one property line to the other property
No.
line, that should not happen, that turns into a whole drama, but if you're on the same place, we should have a fee to
But
handle.
where do you draw the line at that? So
Well,
I put a park model RV on there, right? Is that considered, you gotta pay a fee for that?
Park model RV,
Recreational vehicle.
oh,
So
no,
My mom and dad live in the recreational vehicle on our property with full
Yep.
hookups. You have to charge a fee for that.
if they live there and that's real, absolutely. Yep, if they're there and they're living
You have
there,
the three options. You have an RV, you have a park model home that can come and go like an RV, or you have a full size stickable ADU.
It gets a.
That's why it's gonna
I-
get gray over those three different, those are all three different type of.
I think we might
Actions.
have to start this kind of stair step and see what kind of problems we run into. But for example, you can have 1 meter as long as you're staying in the same parcel,
sure,
legal. You can have 1 meter if you're building in the same parcel and have an accessory dwelling. But you're gonna pay, which we're gonna have to create a rate for that accessory dwelling. That's is something less than a house, but it's something.
it's not a garage, it's
Yeah.
somebody extra
Yeah.
is living there, it's a second home, it's a whatever, but you know. But yeah, if somebody else is living there and you ran a line between the two homes, that's very common. So,
$30 per month per dwelling.
yeah, and hey, I'm just
So
saying, we
just-
don't have to do anything, I'm just saying that
We
that's
just
fine.
start, yeah, we just start with this and
But then how common is it to have an ADU around here?
What?
How common is an
not,
ADU?
the problem is it's not real common yet, but the county's pushing,
Yeah,
the state's pushing.
State is.
Well, the mini home to
Yes.
put in your backyard or
Yeah.
something.
And they're pushing to try to make affordable and in time, houses keep going where they go, and there's gonna be probably more of that. Where people are in the accessory, I mean, I remember on Cedar Street, there was a house, full house, then they had this accessory dwelling, nice, cute little place. But, they only had, 1 meter.
Honestly, I look at it as a homeowner or whoever that side of it, rather than the port. You're basically getting me on both ends. You're charging me more now because I have a part, or an RV parked on my property I'm using, but also I'm gonna be using more water, more people taking showers. So you're gonna charge me more for water, for more usage.
Yes,
And you're also getting me over here because now you're gonna charge me because I have this thing parked here.
Maybe we take this in stair steps. We start with the accessory dwelling, I agree that it's gonna get a little dicey when it comes just like somebody's in for a motorhome for, say 2 months and then they're gone, they come in for summer, their family or something like that, and they're gone.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah, yeah,
If they're living there year round and it's real, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you took your basement apartment, or you took your basement, an apartment, that's a secondary dwelling.
Yeah. yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just saying, we don't have to do any of it, but you're right, with the mini houses coming in, it could be a thing too, so.
Right.
I'm just saying that's common, most districts have that.
I guess it's kind of, the flip side is, if the customers extends service within their parcel, they need to have like a mini water adequacy thing that says, "Okay, this is what we're doing." Okay.
Nah, I don't know about that, but I mean,
I say I'm kind of against it. I think is you get a guy on both sides of it, and it's not that big of a deal right now. And I think how you gonna enforce it?
No, I agree.
No one's gonna come down here and say, "Hey, I'm putting an RV. Can I pay extra $50 what my ADU cost?" No, you're not gonna know about it. No one's gonna put in anything
And
for it.
that's correct, and that happens, and you just go with it, but you find it too, when somebody's building, they're coming in, you're like, oh, it's a second house on here, yeah, I'm building a month.
I think at least minimally, it's the accessory dwelling, because that is, you know.
Yeah, however you guys wanna deal with it, but I'm just saying, that's common.
We'll leave
Probably
it,
should have something.
let's just leave it accessory dwelling, and at least that's kind of a compromise between the two at this moment. In other words, not catch the RV for, you know, although at this point.
So that's what I'm getting at. Most people, I know quite a few, they're doing the park models, which is considered, it's not an ADU.
Yeah.
It's a full-size cedar home with cedar, sheetrock, washer and dryer, but on the stamp, it says recreational vehicle. So you can get away with that on the county because they can't enforce that
Right.
because it's a recreational vehicle.
Right.
And you're putting that, but on the flip side, in Mason County, you're not really allowed to live in an RV full-time
Yeah,
on a piece of property.
right.
So it's a catch-22. So, you're charging for something that basically is not gonna be illegal, it's illegal.
Let's say this, nobody's driving, nobody has time to drive around
Yeah, yeah.
and police it like that, but when prints come in and you're like, oh, you're putting a second house, well, you've gotta pay this.
Yeah.
Oh, you just turned your basement into an apartment or the house sells it, and they fill out their survey that they're supposed to be filling, it would show that, well, you've gotta pay for an extra dwelling. Nobody's going, knocking on the RV doors and, are you living here 24/7? I think there probably should be something, especially with the mini houses coming in. I can't remember what they call it. What do they call it?
Well, accessory dwellings.
Tiny home. Yeah, well, especially with the tiny homes.
Oh, tiny homes that way, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think there should be something, but just to have it as the arsenal, but yeah.
But we're not gonna get into this enforcing like where they have a detached garage and they decide to run water to the
No,
garage.
no, garage, absolutely not. If you have another family living on the
Yeah, no,
property
I
in a second.
No,
home,
I
that's-
just look at the detached, thinking of the garage I built on the last property and we ran water to it.
No,
I never called up PD one and said, I'm running water to the garage.
no, they're living.
So an attached garage is,
No.
so that should stay in there. But
Additional structures, yeah, I don't know.
Habitable structures, there you go.
So it says without obtaining prior written consent from the board. So we don't really have the ability to provide consent for them to build structures,
No,
but they do have the ability to get permission from the county. So if
Yes.
the county gives them permission to build the dwelling, we
you should be getting
we
water
should,
out
we should, yeah, they should be getting water adequacy, but the property already has water adequacy.
That's what
So this is a $30 fee is the medium,
Yeah, okay,
because the property's already obtained adequacy and we've
Sure.
already,
right, okay.
so it needs to not, without obtaining prior written consent from the port shouldn't even be in there.
Yes, I don't know a lot. I don't know of any that I know of people doing, or the county allowing you to build a second home. Like at Twana Falls, that's illegal. That's against our bylaws. You can't build a tiny home next to your home. It's against our rules. It's for one residential structure per lot. So the way to get around it is,
But the county's allowing it.
The county's starting to allow it because they need to find ways to figure out their housing
Right.
crisis when it comes to affordability. They're looking at this as a solution for affordability.
correct.
If we can get people to put little tiny homes on them. They're doing the tiny home and renting them all over like King County and Pierce County as well.
I don't think we're gonna be through this, but okay.
Oh dear, now we go to the other extreme, now we're gonna be me. Okay, we're gonna catch up, Tim,
Oh, okay, good, I got it.
but, okay, so you there? I'm sorry, I didn't see your eyes yet, so,
So
okay, hold on.
Where you at now?
Huh?
Where are we at? Where are we
I'm
at?
starting, yeah, we're I'm moving on to almost 2-3, unless he's got something, you got something to say?
No, I 2-7, fine, I felt like it was fine. But,
2.3, Okay, did we get, on 2.3.3? Did we get the service line thing worked out as far as the definition earlier on when we were talking? In other words, here, like, call it service. Did we call it, what did we end up, you remember we were.
Service line slash lateral is what we went to. And that was for the customer side.
So is this service line the same as?
Schedule installation of any service or activation of an existing service.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
What I'm saying is the service line supposed to be service line lateral or just service line?
That was for the customer. Service line lateral was the customer, how they worded that. And then we had a definition for just service line.
So is this before, I guess what I'm trying to say, is this before or after the meter?
This is before because it says
Right.
before
Service line.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, I'm with you.
which I think is just service line.
Yeah, fine. Okay,
There are no changes there.
okay, I'll move on. 2.3.4, water availability. This is a question I raised with you the other day. Travis, where, especially near the end there, where, shall be automatically rescinded unless renewed by the port, down the third, fourth and third line from the end.
Renewed by the board or monthly billing is established.
Right, because we have situations where, especially in the plat, the way it's been is if people want to pay it, then pay it. And get on, with the regular billing.
Well, I had something on that too, Jeff.
Go ahead.
So what's happened in the past, I don't know about here,
Yeah.
but what happens in the past, all districts run into this, to where somebody has a piece of property.
Right.
They're getting ready to sell it.
Right.
Okay, so they run around to the water district and they get a water availability letter. Hand them out like chicklets, right? So then they say, hey, water's available here, and they get a little perk and they sell the property and they maybe even get a couple extra bucks for doing
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
So what we did and what other districts across the board have been doing is, wait a minute, we issued that water availability letter. That actually took some of the ERU
Right.
out of our system. We don't know if that property is gonna get developed or not, so there's a time frame, 2 years or whatever
Right.
that time frame is, if that's good. But we've been charging for that. That's $600 a letter. If somebody wants to come in and get a water availability letter, it's $600. That's fine and dandy. They get that money back if they actually purchase the service. We refund it. If they just come in and get a water availability letter and say, I'm gonna get the service later, it's $600 right now.
So here, they pay 1,700.
Okay,
To put the.
Yeah, but I look at it from because I come into this quite often. So if I'm calling, I should at least be able to, if as a developer, be able to call and say, yes, water's available for that lot. This is the price of the connection. This is the price for this.
yeah.
And now I can advertise that there's water available. But when I've called and said it's available right now. So the one lot I had, there was only a few connections left, and Bill or PUD1 told me that right now there's X amount of connections left. Right now, yes, you pay a fee, you can connect, and you have water on that property. But if people develop more and they use that, then you won't. Trying to tell me that if I'm going to sell or do something, I need to pay and get locked in first.
Sure.
But I think you cover that by saying it's only good for 12 months. That doesn't really tie you up too much.
What I'm trying to make.
And in order to get that water availability letter and have that 12-month period, you've already put an application in, which costs you $1,725. It's not refundable.
Application with
Yeah.
with here,
Yeah.
with the port. Okay, and you're saying that's non-refundable.
It's non-refundable.
Now, I'm not talking developers, I'm talking just Joe individual, I got a piece of land.
Yep, Joe individual has a piece
Okay.
of land, he has to do the same thing.
So it's.
But he hasn't committed to put the water in, he's just coming down saying, can I get a water availability letter? You're saying, I'll give it to you, but it's $1,700 and you have a year to do something with, or it expires and you're not getting your money back.
And they actually have to show us their plans to do.
Okay.
So-
We approve their plans and that cost.
That PD one, I guess that's what it is. I've called before and they gave me that over the phone,
Yeah,
saying the water's available. And this is the cost
Yeah.
for that, but that's what I said. And they said, you know, there's
And
X
we're
amount
gonna
of,
save
and there's more
that.
development coming that might not be that, but right now we use water in the property, so you can sell that property with a approved water connection. Or a water connection,
Availability.
or a water availability. The water's available for that lot, and you improve and say there's water power, you know, whatever. But if you want to confirm that, you gotta pay for your fee, you know, your water, you can get your water letter and that sort of
I'm
thing.
okay with how you do.
So let me ask it from a different point now. Obviously, I own property, so I'll just ask it straight up. So I want to make sure there's water there. So if I come and say I pay this $6, 7,000, whatever it is, the whole connection fee, it's booked,
it's booked and it's booked for the 12-month period.
right? And then at that
And
point,
at that point, if you still haven't built, you can start paying the port their base rate
fine.
and it's still booked. It's
It
still
wasn't
solidified.
clear about that in his, I didn't feel it was clear like that. Because I know, you know, people say that it's water available, that's fine, but to me, if water's on site, that has a whole nother value.
So I just went through this PD one, so same thing, I paid for my water availability, I paid, the connection fee.
Right,
But I didn't pay, and I was gonna sell the property, so I locked it in, and it's gonna sell the property, so now I got water. But if I didn't pay the next fee to actually have them come and connect, put the meter in, I start all over again.
right.
So
I'm
if
talking like going.
I lose that out, so you had to connect, you know, you had to connect within a year and start paying, and I'm like, well, and most time it's like, I don't wanna pay for it, because I don't wanna pay for water, I'm not using the water, I'm just trying to get the property ready to develop.
Right.
But you have to pay and get that actual connected to lock that in, otherwise you lose. that
Right,
connection.
so once you pay
The connection is always, I guess the connection fee is always paid, but you kind of, you start over, I guess, if you don't get your meter installed and start getting a bill within
well,
12
right,
months.
and the other portion of that is that you pay the connection fee after you pay your fee for having the port review your plans and say, yes, there is water available. Here's a water availability letter. Now the connection fee is due as a deposit. And you can get that money back if you don't proceed with the project, but you don't get the 1725 that you paid for putting the port through the process of
Right.
going, yes, we approve your plans, we approve your scheme, you can do the project.
Right. And I'm talking the other way where I just said, hey, I'm committed. I want to have water on that property.
Right.
And say, okay, we may not build in a year, but I'll start paying the monthly.
That's by putting or monthly billing is established,
Okay,
allows
Okay.
that recension to not
Okay.
occur.
okay. I never did get a chance to read all through the disconnection section. Anybody have anything on that?
I just kind of skimmed, I kind of skimmed through some of this stuff too, so it's like I didn't see anything that jumped out.
Yeah, the disconnection system, they really extensively went through the RCWs. That is way more than,
Yeah,
in fact, they put together a couple of different documents to take care
I'm good through 2.3.6, 2.3.7, 2.3.8. I had something here, maybe. Hold on. You know, after you read this line, if you forget certain where you are in certain things. Once a connection is established, once building's established, that, and I say, or yeah, I or anybody sells that property, the next property owner has that bill, basically, right? In other words, if I build, if I put this all in, but nothing gets built by me, but I sell a lot to Joe Blow can start building, but I mean, things will transfer. So I'm trying, just like it would if you had a house on it.
Correct. To the title company's gonna
Yeah.
contact the port, which is
Okay.
the water system,
Right.
ask if there's any outside fees or
Right.
surcharges or connection, you know, that kind of stuff, so I'm assuming that's how it works, and then they would say, yeah, there's an outstanding balance on this piece of property for the water that has to be paid. And at that time, they would go back to the seller and say, hey, you gotta pay this.
Yeah, they would hold the money back.
Or somehow they'd hold that out of the seller's
It's
portion.
basically the concept of.
Right.
Really,
Okay.
or on computer right now.
I believe in repossession purposes that it would go on to the new owner. So no
Yeah.
matter what happens, he would end up being stuck with that bill.
Right.
If it was a repossessed property.
But by submitting it to escrow when they're at,
Yeah, repossessed property, the guy's gone, he's bankrupt, he's
Yeah.
this and that. So the new owner, yes, but
Yeah.
have to.
And when you go and buy a foreclosure, you do
Yeah,
this.
foreclosure,
it's on,
yeah.
It's on you as a developer or the investor.
Yeah.
To go back through and make sure that all those utility fees and all that
Correct.
stuff, there's nothing, no liens. Because I'm assuming you guys put a lien on it anyways.
well, we may or may not, because in a situation like that, the property would say he's bankrupt, so he's not paying his water bill essentially. So he would have, basically, it probably had his line disconnected because of non-payment.
Right, there's
And
somewhere.
then when the new owner comes in, they wouldn't be able to turn the water back on until they paid everything, so.
Maybe even tampering fees and all that stuff that has happened in between time.
So you guys don't do,
Which you would.
you don't do liens, you just wait for the.
Well, we could do liens, it's just, there's easier ways, it seems like, to go about it than going through that whole process.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
We would rather avoid it. And that, in this situation of repossession and, sold to another person, it's really their responsibility to find out what's owed on the property. And they can come and call us and go like, so, I mean, you're the water provider, is there any outstanding fees? Cause.
Well, they're coming in because I need my water turned on, there's a
Yeah.
lock on it, what I do,
Yeah.
well, you gotta pay
Okay,
the
well, here's the
$2,000.
invoice for $2,800.
Once you pay that, what? And then go back on the seller or the, go
Yeah,
get that money back.
Like, well, this is what happens when you buy repossessed property, you're going to have other bills associated.
Okay, keep moving along.
Yep.
I'm fine with 2.4.2, 2.4.3. 2.4.4, something caught my attention there. So is this, okay, to me, you're getting easements. Is this where? I'm not sure about this, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I know the biggest thing I see in that is somebody just said they can't block access to the meters. That's what we have problems with, is people build fences around their property and the meters inside and and basically you have a meter inside, a full fenced off, and you got a big dog in there. Now you don't have
Yeah.
access to it. So that's kind of a big thing. Or people build landscaping, put rockery and rock, or they put a big tree right next to the meter, which
Yeah.
grows.
So let me back up with, first of all, the port's only getting easements on the new ones that are sold, right?
The port is intended.
Right, no, I get that, but you don't have easements for,
Right.
I've given you, an idea for the road maintenance to work with you, but, your attorneys will have the last say on that one.
Operation, water district, that's
Right.
my expertise, water district.
Districts, yeah.
You stop at the meter.
Yeah,
This basically says, well, we have right to inspect plumbing for compliance, i.e. cross connection stuff. We stop at the meter. If we know of a cross connection issue in the property, we mandate that they put in a backflow preventer or they are not gonna have water.
right.
But we don't have any authority past the meter. Now, I
That's-
don't know about port, but I'm telling you that is private property and we
Yeah.
don't want that. Now, we do have access and easements, as you say.
Yeah.
If there's a water main running down the side of their home,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
the side of
sure.
their property, we have easement for that. But their normal, anything past the meter, we
I would-
have no access
no,
to, nor do we want to have.
No, I
access.
think it opens up Pandora's box liability wise.
I don't want nothing to do with that. So,
But per the state, if you're doing this or that on the property that could cause contamination, you're required to have cross control.
a backflow preventer
Backflow
has to be
preventer.
installed or you're not gonna have water. But we don't know of that unless we send out a survey, unless we do this, or unless we witness something.
Yeah.
Right, but you just don't have the right to inspect that. It's gonna be on the outside of the meter.
It'll be outside the meter at the meter area.
So, but you still, but you
It's
still
like
have the
you can
right.
see in and say, oh, there's a
Still be able
cross
to- Still be
connection.
able to
Yeah, so
inspect
it's
that.
gonna be right at the meter. So
Right.
I really have never had any issue with that, yes, but, and then, yeah, this kind of opens it up to where you're inspecting the plumbing
Yeah,
lines and
yeah.
stuff. I don't know, but you're right, but they're gonna install the backflow preventer at the meter.
Right, I guess that's why I interpreted more of that, that basically
Okay.
allowing you to go and check the meter, read the meter, check for, backflow prevention or what have you, but that's gonna be right there.
At the premise,
Right.
That's right.
So I guess, hearing what you're saying, think about it. To me, if you're gonna apply this, it's just gotta somehow call it out that it's only in the public right of way or the easement area, it can't be on the private property side.
But is everything, I mean, these are old systems, is there are these in the easement area? All of them or some of them on private property?
Can you just put in there and,
Ours are
inspection of
all
backflow
over the
preventer?
place.
Can you just put that on there? Will include inspection of backflow preventer and let it be. I don't know.
Isn't that your cross connection check, basically?
Yeah, but this inspecting plumbing for compliance is, if,
It's too
inspection of,
loose.
it's too loose. Inspection of backflow prevention if required. Just leave it.
Actually, just remove all this, just address for the purpose of reading meters and maintaining, removing port property. Realistically, it's covered.
Yeah, no, yours just say simplify it.
So just, the purposes of reading meters and maintaining or retrieving.
Yeah, and that's,
So the
Okay,
backflow
cleans it up.
preventer would not be the port property, that would be
Yeah,
customer
so-
owned. And we do have to inspect it once. After that, we're out. So normal operation, they let you on and you inspect it, but after that, we don't test the backflow
Yeah,
preventers or
right,
anything.
right.
So I don't know, but I agree, remove it.
2.4.5 cross connections. Oh, wait.
I think that's when you're talking about inspecting plumbing, I guess. You're not expecting the homeowner's plumbing, you're expecting the plumbing of the service line, the meter, that sort of thing. But could get interpreted differently.
Oh. Okay. I flagged it, but I misread a word. Tell me when later. So I'll ask Jim this because he has experience in this. Like on 2.4.5, the studying of the fourth line where when I read this, you still don't want a cross connection even if you have an improved backflow preventer, do you?
Yeah, that's why the backflow preventer is there, because they have a need for it. They have something that there's a potential of doing a cross connection. Potential should be used heavily through the cross connection world.
Right.
The cross connection to me, when I think of that, I'm thinking of like a sprinkler system and you have your backflow preventer or right, the sprinkler system that keeps the water from, and you inspect those ports on there.
So and you're right, that most people do that. They'll run the service line straight to the home, and they'll tee off and they'll run a sprinkler system in the front yard. I do not allow that at the district I'm in. I say, wait a minute, we're the water system. If you have an irrigation system, period, there is a problem on this property, period. It has to get installed on the main line right from the meter. Now, will that contaminate your own system? Yes, and you probably should put a second one in, or maybe an atmosphere. We require it at the main line, and the reason is, I've had in the past, somebody goes into the backyard and they put an irrigation system in a year later. Well, right now, they don't put a backflow preventer on it. It is a direct line right back to the water system for us. Because the front yard
Yeah,
is
you're
teed
not,
off.
I mean, I installed those years ago. You're not supposed to do like you're recommending because, like you said, now you're contaminating your
You
own
need two
water
devices.
of your house, so.
Need two devices, but the water system should require it to be at the premise. And it depends on what hazard. If you have an irrigation system that's low hazard, it's gotta be a double check. If you have a well on your property that's an RP, it's a high hazard and it's above ground. But everything stops at the meter for us.
Okay, then no problem. I'm good with 2.5, 4.5. I better understand now.
Where to next?
Anybody with 2.4.6? Maybe that's system disturbances. 2.4, let's see. Okay, on 2.4.7. You got, in my mind, you got newbies that are coming on the system, and that's fine. With the existing users, what's the plan with this?
The interruption service.
Well, yeah. In other words, here you had this line, like last line where it says customers should take necessary precautions during outages, okay? And so this is kind of the concept of, whatever. With it, and that's fine in my mind with new customers that you're bringing on because they're signing all this stuff. With the existing users, how are we handling that?
What, the notification of interruption of service?
No, back up. Let me state it a different way. You acquired 15, well, more than that, 22 users off my system. Okay. How are you getting them up to speed with the port's policies? Or we haven't yet, is right?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Okay, fine.
they've been billed and then they've got all the opportunity in the world to call and ask any questions they have.
Yeah.
And a few of them have, and a few of them haven't.
Yeah. I guess where I'm going with this whole thing is that when this is done, or at least a good point, this almost needs to go out at least to those, because they never signed anything with you. They all signed it with me.
Sure. Yeah, they were forced to.
Yeah.
And that happens in a lot of.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I'm just saying,
Perhaps,
You know, when they signed over the old rules, or old guidelines?
yeah, I mean,
Because I mean, I don't, but once this is approved.
no, but yeah, I'm saying they need to know.
I think the best way to handle it is to send them a form letter
Yes,
a week before the actual regular meeting that is going to approve this policy
fair,
and give them an opportunity
Fair.
to weigh in.
yeah. All I'm saying is I don't want people blind into this.
I'll say this, that once this thing gets put in, you might want to just put a little blurb in the bill that is, stop by the office if you're interested in the policies on the water system or whatever, and let it be.
Yeah, or
Mail this
online.
to everybody.
No.
Yeah, go online, I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I got something else to say on 247
I'm
before
done.
we move on. So it says here, the port is not responsible for property damage resulting in interruption of service and stuff. It is extremely common, certainly for districts that don't have a check valve at the meter, and I don't know the system, if they all have checks, if they don't, the little single check, like on a setter and
yeah.
stuff. It's extremely common, and it just recently happened to me that we had to buy a hot water tank because we had a main break and we shut the main down. It bled back into the water main and the hot water tank elements.
We cover that because in our bylaws, our rules, it says all property owners are supposed to have a backflow prevention to keep that from happening. And so that's my fallback is, and no one knows what that is, no one ever did that, but that's my fallback is, I'm sorry, you burned up, but it's in our bylaws, you're supposed to be, you're required to make sure there's backflow prevention.
We had a check valve, just one of the little check valves to come on the setter, but it was stuck open and it bled back in, and we bought a hot water tank. That is not the first hot water tank I bought over my 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
It happens, but it says here, it's like Ford is absolutely out. It might be case by case basis or something. I don't know, but it's very strict on how they did that, and maybe the board has to buy a hot water tank from time to time or something. I don't know.
Right.
So, and I'm just throwing it out.
To me, it's in that same school of thought where I was talking about the pressure. It's so to speak. In other words, the guarantee of pressure.
Right.
It's different, I agree, but it's kind of like that in my mind.
Throwing it out there.
Well, another thing under, it talks about customers are responsible for the backflow prevention and make sure they're tested.
Yeah, if
That.
they, so we're not requiring them to put a backflow preventer in, or we shouldn't be, if they just don't need it.
Yeah.
But if you have a need for it, then it gets put in. So not everybody will.
No, and most like the houses are going in up here, like,
They won't need it. They're
No.
not putting swimming pools in.
yeah,
In floor heating.
yeah, yeah.
All that. But we should be requiring a meter setter or something with a check valve at the meter, a little check, and that would prevent a lot of
I
it.
think.
And
on
I
our
think that is
construction-
true.
Yeah, the construction side, the setter,
Setters have that check now.
Yeah, not all setters,
No,
but
Once we install, we just, even though it says our rules, we still install so that we
Yeah.
have a little
so
extra.
I was hoping all the new ones can be caught to make sure they got a setter with
Yeah.
a little check and stuff. That would prevent a lot. But I'm just saying,
so quick question. Travis. On block 61. Those didn't have check valves, right?
you know,
Oh, they do now.
They
Okay,
did.
good. Okay.
well, they don't, okay.
They didn't because long story, but short and sweet is the developer did not put them in at the initial time the line was installed.
Well, I'm just saying.
Okay.
I think it's another liability issue as far as legally, they put that in there, so it covers that basis. And that way the person's not responsible.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
current process is to put in the manifold for the check valve installed for the meter
Right.
bases. It does say at the bottom, any after hours calls. Meter will be subject to an after hours service charge as provided by the rate schedule.
Which is $150.
But that's specifically after hours reconnection fee, not a after hours service charge
Well, we're back to the on-call service charge
for the interruption of service portion.
after hours, which would be our on-call, which is what we tried to deal with in the beginning. We were talking about service charges.
So just a service charge, do you want to add it, do you want to add in their service charge as provided in the rate schedule?
Yeah.
And do you charge for the repair too? Is that somewhere? So if someone does some damage, I'm in my yard, I dig up my meter, something like that.
Yeah,
So you're charging $150 after hours. Would you also build them an overtime rate?
right.
So should that be after our service charges provided in the rate schedule and any associated
What is our
overtime rate?
What is the overtime rate?
I don't know if we even have it.
Yeah, it should be time material, and there should be an overtime rate.
I just try to say overtime rate, and that's open to whatever that is. I mean, it's gonna be different. It could be different.
It could be whatever the overtime rate.
Whoever you call, I mean, you could call,
Of the maintenance person, the fourth that's doing it.
I just say, it's called overtime rate. And that way it's covered because you might call so-and-so, you might call so-and-so. Those rates aren't gonna be, they might be different.
But I think Port has to document, have to go through public. When they set rates like for the gazebo and different things they have to have a public hearing meeting.
Okay, if there's a big, what do you call right now? If I dug up my line, I got gusher out there.
You know, at midnight, I call.
Right. But they charge me different rates.
Yeah,
So they're gonna,
actually, I think it's $125 an hour.
I mean, if I call them during the day, they don't charge me any emergency rates, but if I charge them after hours, they charge me like double.
Right, yeah. And
So there's not like, I'm saying there's not really a standard rate. It's basically what it is
No, I
and
hear
who
you.
they are. So it's,
Minimally, I think the board just has to understand that if that's what we're gonna do.
I just say they're responsible for any overtime repair rate or how we want to word that.
Actually, I think it's in our contract.
Yeah. So there wasn't in that one.
Since he's gonna call. Do you guys use the same excavating company he does?
Yep, emergency hour rate is 127.50 per man hour.
Okay. Anything else on 2.4.7?
Yeah, as long as you covered, like I said, the overtime rate and any type of fees, because you have your overtime rate, but you also, that guy charges per truck, and this truck is X amount of hours, this truck is, this piece of equipment is X amount of hours, and
Anything on 2.5?
nope.
Sounds like need to get some answers there.
Yeah,
Where's your next one at?
it'd be here 2.5.2, or actually 2.5.3, where I have the next one. Otherwise, no guarantee things again.
Have at her.
I'm waiting for, he's writing, sorry. Travis is writing, so
I think I got something for the water service fire protection, so.
yeah, so which one?
252.
Okay, so then I'll let you go, first then. Cause mine's 2.5.3.
Oh, okay, I'll wait for.
No, you're 2.5.2, you're first.
You want me to go down?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
well, as soon as Travis is done writing, whatever he's writing there.
Okay.
We're kind of covering this water service for fire protection, and it says the port will allow service connections for private sprinkler systems. Correct. We should put in here that we only allow for, flow through system on a private residential home. And that meter size would be required at 1 inch. You would have to have a 1 inch
Sure.
meter, and you would have a flow through system for a private residential sprinkler. So I think that somehow should be navigated in here, that we require 1 inch and you have to have a flow through system.
So in the construction documents, would that be where you catch the size?
Okay,
But then it just needs to state there's a requirement of a meter or whatever.
yeah, so you would use your normal potable water,
Right. Oh,
and
okay.
1 inch would be feeding your home.
Okay,
And it would also feed the sprinkler system. And then what they do to meet the backflow requirement is at the very end of the home, laundry or whatever, the faucet or the washing machine or whatever is plumbed into the very end of the sprinkler system.
oh,
And that's a flow through system, and there's
Oh.
no backflow requirement needed.
oh,
And you have a 1 inch meter, and that's for a private residential home. And somehow we need to probably say,
sure.
a 1 inch meter will need to be provided for, your
Yeah,
bottled water,
alright.
and a flow through system would have to be.
No, it sounds like that's a cleaner method than the other method, where, more the larger ones where they're not a flow through.
Yeah, so the second paragraph's kind of, anyhow, I think it can be dealt with.
Well, a 1 inch meter needs to be provided with a flow through system
For a residential,
for a residential fire.
yes, and that's it, you're good.
So, don't want to get too picky here, but on residential, is there a square footage limit to that?
No,
Okay.
no, if it's one single
Yeah,
dwelling,
yeah.
that's it.
So if it's 5,000 square feet, it's still the same.
Still 1 inch.
Yes, and the other thing is when you get into apartments or you.
Oh,
get
yeah,
into-
no,
Yeah,
That's different.
that's a whole nother
Yes.
tap and,
Yeah.
detector assembly needed and,
right. Okay. We're good?
okay, that's all I had.
Okay, you
Where
got,
would you put that? You put that in the 251 fire support? Or,
Oh, well, I think the first residential thing would probably be in the second paragraph of 252. I think that probably
252.
can be, it says private fire sprinkler systems or private hydrants, which I think would be.
Your last sentence. Whatever you put for your last.
last sentence in the second paragraph?
Yeah.
252.
Add that, well, add what you were talking about in that make a new sentence in the last part of that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. water use from a private service line purposes, yeah. Fire, yeah, and he's right, it's got the price to put it. A flow through system will need to be required along with a 1-inch meter for that service and more. But it's not a separate meter, you see, they're normal drinking water meter.
I have a question for the good of the order. We're grinding through this and it's great. If we come up to 8 o'clock, what's the committee's thoughts?
8 o'clock, yeah, 8 o'clock, I'm good, and I need to go get something to eat, so, not that I'm, but yeah, we still got ways to go.
Yeah.
Then we can be here tomorrow night, I'm okay.
Good. Okay, I just want to first address tonight and then okay. We will address that at 8 o'clock.
Keep on charging through.
Yep.
We're at next.
Okay, so 2.5.3. Again, we get this one of these no guarantees. So again, philosophically, I have a problem with this. If you're trying to provide backflow protection and can't provide it.
Like, again, I look at that as more of this is a more of a legal attorney
Yeah.
type option, because it's basically if something happens and all of a sudden you're fighting a fire and maybe there's a leak somewhere and all of a sudden something blows out somewhere else, so you have that fire flow, the port's not responsible for that. And that's why I look at it.
No, I get it. I just, I'm having this philosophical issue. Like, if you're trying to provide a fire flow and now it's not there.
It's like, I get it's more of a legal issue trying to keep the port out of being sued.
Yeah, and technically the fire flow was available for,
For a split second.
well, for because it's been tested and proven
Yeah,
that it's available.
Yeah.
And if at the time you need it, something catastrophically fails and you don't have it, you can't come after the port for that.
okay, fine. I'm fine with that. Believe it or not, I don't have anything dealing with the appeal hearing or 2.6, anything on resolution. 2.6, I'm totally clear.
I did have something on 253.
Okay.
It
go ahead.
says the customers, let's see. As a condition of obtaining a hydrant use permit, the customer shall permit port inspection of the equipment to be used to ensure backflow prevention devices are adequate. That was part of my thing on the fees. I didn't see any fees for renting a hydrant meter.
So we have,
Or,
needs to be added to the schedule.
so how we do it, we rent the hydrant meter out by the week. And we also, if they have it for more than a month, we actually have a backflow tester come test it at the site and we charge them for that also. So that needs to be in the fee schedule, okay?
So what do you charge by the week?
It's $25 a week, $100 a month, and it's $75 for the backflow tester to come out. And that's if they have it over a month, but even if they had it, quite frankly, even if they had it a week, you still test that. So what we do, our hydrant meters get tested annually, okay? And then they're sitting there ready to go. We got a green tag on it saying we're good, sitting on the shop. It gets rented out. It gets rented out for a week. That gentleman is still gonna pay the backflow tester fee because it's got to get tested again to make sure it's good to go before it goes back out to the next customer. And we put a green tag on it again saying it was tested. So he gets charged a week rate if he has a week and a backflow test. Okay,
Yeah, the current bulk water rates policy is $100. Just to start the process, and then $75 to rent the meter. And then water use rates after that, but it's not clear whether, it literally reads as if you charge them that each day that they come for water.
yeah,
And it's a massive, I've had a lot of contractors call up and just be like, no, I'm gonna find something else. That's ridiculous.
there should be a deposit. They're about $2,000 to build now.
Yeah.
We collect $2,500 up front. We actually work off of that, especially on some of the larger projects. We'll work off of these fees, so they're not getting off of some of that. So all the way down like $2,000 or something. But anyhow, It's $2,500 upfront.
Well, there should be a deposit, because obviously, yeah, if somebody takes off with it, you're,
Yeah, they do get stolen, they're brass. I've also had trucks hooked up to them and the driver took off with it hooked up and busted them. There's stuff that happens,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
But if the guy had it for a month, he gave you $2,500, you could just take
Yeah,
that month
yeah.
bill and work.
And then there's the actual backflow check fee.
The test,
The
yes.
test.
Yeah, the test. And that'll be monthly, or if he has it a week, it's still gonna be billed to you.
There's not like a certification for a year or anything. You have to check it each and every.
Each and every time, because you don't know if it's actually good for the next guy to send it back out. Is it actually functioning? So you need to make sure that it's functioning every time. So if it comes back, it gets tested, I'm good to go, I'm sitting on the shelf.
And that's for the meter, not the.
That's for the backflow preventer.
That's for the backflow.
Yeah.
Because you provide the actual backflow preventer, they have to use your backflow preventer.
It's all on one giant unit, a meter and a
I see.
backflow preventer and a 2-inch meter and backflow preventers all together.
Right.
And we give them a little hose to go from the hydrant to the meter and the backflow preventer.
Yeah,
And is that backflow preventer and meter that just literally attaches straight to the hydrant? And then they fill from there?
Some guys do, and they put a little deal on it. I highly suggest use our little 10-foot hose, put a pallet out here, set the backflow preventer on a pallet, let the hose go down, so you don't have all this weight. The thing is heavy.
Right, and if it kicks,
I mean, it's
You
just,
got
it's
mass
hanging
moving.
there, and so,
So you require the backflow preventer even when they have an air gap?
yes, oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can't be there to police every truck or every person that's coming there. Hey, you got a job site, you want water from us? You're gonna get the meter and the backflow preventer, so we can bill how much
Right.
water usage, and we're gonna make sure we're protected.
yeah. Cause I know we had some problems there with Cedar Homes.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, but just accident and just by luck, not a problem. Okay, so 2.5.3, we through,
Yeah.
okay, 2.6, anything in there,
I'm good,
of any of the chapters?
good to. Excellent.
Ooh, section 3. I didn't even work this, it's just like, well, wait, maybe I'm wrong here. No. Anybody have anything in section 3?
I didn't,
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't, no, I'm
Oh.
good, yeah, good.
Oh, you're good, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Do you have anything on section 3?
No, and to be honest, I read about 2/3. This is the third I could get to, so, that's where I'm at.
Only one thing I have, let's see, where does that come? 3.6.3 onto the page 28 portion. At the end there, we have customers qualifying as low income and elderly disabled, da, da, da. Do we have? Does the board have a rate structure for that, or are we? Yeah,
Where are you at there, Jeff?
page 28, third paragraph.
Is there a adopted assistance program? Is there any type of program? So do you just delete that out?
Yeah. That would be my recommendation also, unless the plan is to have one, and then, but then Then we have to get on with it and create one.
Well, let's just X that out of it.
Right, you could put a tab in there, you could put, you know what I'd recommend? This, and see what the attorneys say, but on the 3.6.3, you could have that and just have it, you know, like the future reference, no policies are existing currently.
I would just take it out, and put it myself.
That's
And then-
fine,
and then
either way.
Just take it out.
I'm always for flags, trying to remind us. Okay,
And that's because we just don't have a comprehensive policy to detail it.
yeah, that's fine. I don't have anything else for 3. Anybody else have anything else for 3? Wow. Section 4. Yeah, all we have to do is clean up the rate structure thing based upon what we discussed tonight, so there's nothing more there. Sure. Second. Question on 4.2, third line on base charge. The base charge is determined by the size of the meter and the SDF. Is that how we are doing it?
Okay, so, yes, the base charge determined by the size of the meter and the SDF. The base charge should just, yeah, because the base, if you got a 2-inch meter
Right, right.
and okay, so I guess the best way I had this described is at least what I described it now is you've got a commercial, this is really dealing with commercial structures without
Okay.
saying commercial structures. So a commercial structure is planned and detailed to have a certain amount of, heat, right? And
Right,
the thing is, it's not always needing that much water.
right,
So you give it a certain size meter,
right.
and then if you go to the SDF table, it'll have a certain weighing factor to it.
Okay. So basically, it's going to the base, but it's under commercial, and that's why I'm having trouble thinking it's residential.
We really got rid of the whole commercial concept by going to just the SDF and the meter size.
You see, I remember, sidetracked for a moment, I remember having a fairly detailed discussion with you about that, some of the shortcomings it seemed like we ran into. Did those get all addressed, for lack of a better question? It seemed like there was because when we were looking at the memory care.
The memory care actually has a separate appendix
Okay,
to deal with that, because
Yeah,
that is
so-
a very specific,
it was kind of like
medical
a
facility.
had high peaks, but low full consumption. If that makes any sense. Okay, I don't wanna, at this, I mean, we got nothing pending on this, and things like this could come back before the committee and others.
This should be a fluid document, and it's
Yeah.
not, this is not set in stone, and a year from now, we can reevaluate it, or 2 years from now, or whatever.
Definitely in a position where we have something workable.
No,
I
I get,
think it absolutely, well,
Yeah.
I think it is, but I'm saying it should be, yeah.
So one of the reasons put in the concept of having the meter size and the SDF, because say, how I describe this? You've got a pretty put in a big multifamily home, right?
Right.
And that big multifamily home needs more than a 5/8 by 3.
Right.
Say it's, the property is, two lots.
Right.
And they're doing some special type,
Right.
living arrangement.
Right.
Commune or whatever
Right.
they approve.
Multifamily.
We want to make sure that their demand is going to keep up with the table.
Got it. Okay.
Because their demand could go outside the table and
Yes.
we're not getting the amount of,
Right.
Meter rate.
Right, you're trying to collect the fees to allow you to build the infrastructure to keep, or, size stuff up to line. I got it.
Because when the engineer puts up the plans and says, okay, here's the size meter we need. And we go, okay, well, how many, people do this, building plan to have?
Right.
And we go, oh, well, that seems like a lot more. What's the, average, daily demand of this, this structure?
Right,
And they go, oh, it's this much. And we're like, okay, well, yes, it would be that size of meter, but you're gonna be paying more than a base rate for that. You're gonna be paying like it's a 1-inch meter.
right. Okay. I'm good. 4.4. Question there. This is dealing with the system development fee. Okay, to allow the port to recover the cost of increasing the capacity of the system and increase maintenance. My understanding is the base fees are doing the maintenance and operations, and the system development fees are the capacity and then what I call end of life of equipment. In other words, the tank is good for 50 years, and then it needs replacing or something of that
Then you have
nature.
maintenance.
Yeah, increased maintenance costs. I mean, if you could detail it as from aging equipment, but it's,
They still count as maintenance, you're saying?
yeah, I mean.
See, to me, maintenance is so to speak, for lack of a better word, is on the fly crap that happens all the time, or happens frequently, that you're fixing or repairing or this and that. Other things, like for example, this is not in water, but like the PUD, they have these transformers that are rated for 50 years at substations. They typically don't like to run them until they break, because when they break, you don't just go down to local electrical supply and replace it. So they're replaced ahead of failure. So to me, the SDFs were, so to speak, addressing both the end of life stuff as well as system capacity. And if everybody thinks I'm crazy,
And I think maintenance covers that. Why are you doing it? Because you have to maintain the system. It's going to fail, so you replace it because you got to maintain, keep the system up and going.
Right.
I think it kind of covers.
that's fine. That's fine. If 2 to 1, no problem. I don't have a problem. I'm not married to it. It's just the way my mind thinks.
Right.
There are districts that surcharge for emergency type stuff. It's happened up where I live twice. They surcharge if they have a large expenditure and stuff. I'm just saying, I don't really want to go down that path,
No.
but that does happen.
Yeah. Okay.
We call that a reserve. That's what we call that a reserve fund.
I've given my
We charge every time a house sells, we charge them $250 to put it in our pot for maintenance and repairs
I
and
think you're right. When they purchase the meters, that they're buying into the system, and that money should be for there. Yeah.
You have this, so in 4.4.1, the basis for the system development fee, is that still covered? I get mixed reads when I read this. Are we still in sync with what we had earlier? Because way back early in one of the other chapters tonight, we were discussing like the availability versus connection versus all this. Except as otherwise agreed to in writing by the port, if service is requested and paid for, but not connected within 1 year.
Or for billing.
Okay. Fine. I'm good. You good? Okay, 4.4.2. In the middle of that paragraph, it says, accurately reflect continuous peak hour demand. I don't believe that we're continuous for peak hour demand. That sounds kind of weird. Peak hour is peak hour. I wouldn't think there'd be anything called continuous peak hour demand.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just, it was.
Yeah. Oh, it's removed? Yeah. Yep, okay.
That's my bad sentence structure.
Okay. Going on to 4.6. It's actually 4.6. It's the paragraph after 4.6.3. It's not numbered. Do you want a periodic adjustment or do you want annual review or?
Again, I realize more of a legal liability issue. They're letting you know that these rates can change at any time. So it's on you to know what the rates are.
It's fair. I mean,
That's why I'm not, I said that's more of a liability issue. So they're letting you know that these rates can change at any time.
But are subject to the commission approval.
right.
Where is that?
Well, it's not,
Well, it says adjusted by the commission.
Oh.
Already says that. It says all the above fees and policies are subject to periodic adjustments by the commission.
Yep. Did you leave extension policies for another day?
We power through this.
Okay.
I'll say this, I need to use the restroom, so maybe.
Sure.
5 minute break. in case it keeps struggling.
We only got.
Yeah, there's only one.
You paid
The last,
left.
the last.
you got 2 pages to that. Good, right?
Yeah.
I think give it a shot. You're good. Okay, we're reconvening our workshop or our meeting here on the policies, the water system policies from our 5-minute break. On to section 5. This is one of on 5.2 that developers extension agreement. It's one of the things to put up in your acronyms, the DEA in the acronym pile that you have up in the first part of it.
Oh. DEA, it wasn't listed in it.
I keep thinking drug enforcement.
Does it use the term DEA in section 5?
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
DEA is on behalf of the port. And when you say deviate from form provision, what are we saying there in that, the last line of that 5.2.1? If you said policies, yeah, I'd understand. But I'm not sure what you mean by provision. Okay, yeah, no problem.
What was the question again?
Provision.
Provision, form provision there. On the last line of 5.2.1. It deviates from the form provision. What are we saying, form policy or what are we referencing then?
I think what they meant is they're referencing the.
Okay, if it okay, so what it's referencing is that if the executive director makes changes to the actual structure of the developer extension agreement, the SPA commission.
Okay,
Can't take that template and make changes to the template. The template is a solid, unchangeable.
so is that the phraseology, form provision and versus template? Is that what when we say template?
I'm not sure.
Actually,
Why-
actually, in the word, it should be form provisions, shouldn't it? If you're gonna use provision.
I just haven't seen it, so that's why. You tell me this way it is, fine.
I don't really understand how it's, what it's getting at by saying from the form provision.
I would just ask for clarification, you know, give.
It's basically telling you not to deviate from what the form says. That's what I read, is basically telling you not to
To
deviate
me,
what-
it would-
what the form
But I'm
says.
making assumptions, yeah, I agree, but. And if that's what they say, that's fine. We know, I think we all know what what we're asking for is that basically you can change, but then you have to go through, the commission. And I'll look up. Let's see.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
5.2.2. So in other document or other parts, we're either saying port, executive director or port ways or port commission. Here we just say the port. Should we be saying? Yeah, on the second to the last line where it says, third, the applicant will pay the actual cost incurred by the port, notwithstanding the foregoing. The port may, at its sole discretion, contribute to project costs.
So that second port should be, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It should say port commission.
Right.
So that second port
No,
should say
or commission.
port
May.
commission, may gives you basically the,
Right.
tells you who has the authority to do it.
You got it?
Okay, moving on. Even though you only have the port executive director in 5.2.4, the last line there, I'm not sure that the commission needs to approve that. Because it's an engineer that's gonna be looking at that. In other words, the determination of oversizing and cost allocation, well, maybe that. Will be made by the port's executive director in consultation with the port's engineer prior to approval of plans.
So what about that?
I don't know,
Again, I just read that, it says the port's executive director has final approval. That's
Of,
why I read that.
of the recommendations of the engineer. It gets, I see where you're getting, Jeff.
Yeah.
You wanna see the commission have a say, and
this is
And
ongoing discussion I have with this
and I
commission.
think that's gonna be a battle
Yeah, no.
players in the sense that, they're trying to keep the executive director in control of these finite details, and that the commission has already approved the policy, the plans, all the contracts.
Right.
And that really, the only thing that they're approving is finalized product.
Okay, fine, and I'm fine with that, I'm fine with that. You know where I'm going, is just the oversight issue that we
Right.
ran into this year.
And it's still, there's.
Yep,
The initial application, and then there's approval of the final.
Fair. I'm not hung up on, I understand. Okay, anybody else on that page? Okay, 5.2.5 easements. We have a problem in the plat. If they put a water line down the alley's only 20 feet and half is owned by one and half is owned by the other.
Okay, so there's an issue with this when running a water line down now.
Yeah. And where,
Because what's the size of the,
so like take Compass Lane. That's 20 feet and it's And only by the road maintenance got another 5 feet in there because of the transformer locations and stuff like that. But other than that, it's, in other words, there's not 30 feet to split. There's only 25 feet total to split.
Well, it says it's 15
15
foot
feet.
wide.
Yeah.
You got 20 feet.
No, but I'm saying, yeah, picture this. Lots on this side, lots on this side of the alley.
Yes,
It's owned, each property owns 10 feet of that alley.
okay.
So if you,
It doesn't matter, there's an easement that runs through their property.
no, but to get the easement, you have to have both property owners.
Okay, that's what happens.
Okay, fine, if that's,
There's an easement that runs through there. And
okay. So if they decide they're gonna put down the alley, they're just gonna have to get the buy off from both property owners, even if the other property owner is not developing.
yeah, exactly what
Fine,
happens, that
fine.
it's on the developer.
Fine. I knew the problem of how it is, and that's,
It's gonna be ugly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's ugly. Up to the
Yeah,
developer
no
to
problem.
figure out.
No,
At the end of the day, we end up with at least 15 foot wide as far
right, okay.
Why do they have to be 15 feet wide?
as.
Why do they have to be, just my own knowledge?
Oh, we need to be able to get a backhoe in
Like
there.
ours are basically 5 and 5. So this property owner is 5 on this. And
But,
we have a 10 foot.
but when you try to work in a foot, 10 foot, when
Well,
you,
no, I just wondered, that's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's,
so you'd be able to get a
More
backhoe in
room
there
and stuff.
dig it up and stuff.
I know putting a skid steer, or excavator type mini,
15 gets pretty small, right?
it's really
I get mine
small.
through 6 feet.
Okay, moving on. Um, okay, this is on the approval process, so this 5.3.1. It seems like in the approval plans, okay, first of all, backing up a step. Right now, we have the developers, anybody that's either connecting or extending the system, right? Or not?
No, just say that again.
Okay, right now, the phrase developer, the word we use developer, is anybody that's either connecting one lot to your water line or extending the water lines down a block or two. Just, okay, in the latter where you're extending, my understanding is you have to submit those to the Department of Health.
Only, there are certain factors
Okay,
that, the engineer can tell you which factors are required to submit to the Department of Health.
okay,
Not all extensions are required submission.
okay, I'll leave it alone. Okay, I'll leave 5.3.2 alone. 5.3.3. Oh, I never got a chance to look at your appendix C. It's on the checklist, so I don't know. I flagged it, but I never got to it, so I don't know. I'll have to let it pass at this point. Okay, question before I go to easements and all that. Here, the port has franchise agreements in place right now for the county side of the equation, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. But I mean, for water, but in other words, you still have to get a permit to do work in the right of way, the county right of way, but you don't have to get a franchise agreement to do it.
Correct.
Okay. Never mind. What is it? What's this special? Okay, on this 5.4, the port's discretion, don't you want to always have the easements before we start or as you start?
So, the way the contracts work is that before the notice to proceed goes out, supposed to have the easements.
Yeah, proceed, okay.
There are times where the work in the plat kind of makes it so that those easements are really hard to finish before they finish putting the infrastructure in.
So give me an example, because most of them.
Well, these certificates have housing development,
Oh, there.
okay? And the fact that they,
But is that because they didn't follow, we didn't have a policy and they started, got ahead of us, so to speak?
I had a conversation with them and talked about it. It seemed a lot because they don't have the complete as-built done until they put all the infrastructure in. Say exactly where it's at.
Yeah, but I mean, they're creating a drawing for you to
Right.
approve, and isn't that where we're gonna put the water line?
That's where, but they don't have the complete drawings from the engineers, from my understanding, or not the engineers, the surveyors,
Okay,
because they haven't placed everything in place.
okay,
And it seems that, that the easements, if they come before we provide them the meters, what does it matter?
it's handy.
But it's not necessary,
Yeah, okay,
You have the meters as your power, your control.
Right.
And if they don't provide everything and anything and the fees are all paid and everything else, you don't put the meter in and they don't get any water. So
so,
that would be the regulation.
so on the as-bills, you're still not giving them the meters until,
Nope.
okay. Okay, no problem
I
then.
was clear with that.
No problem.
That's correct.
It's just that the notice to proceed so that they can put the infrastructure in.
It's fine,
In some angles, it's a lot,
fine.
it's more costly to them, I think is what it is. To be able to prevent them ahead of time.
It's,
I mean, I could have another conversation with them.
I'm just saying-
More why, but
the problem.
It's- yeah.
The problem is you should be creating these easements because you got all the crap that's going in these easements besides the water.
yeah,
And so,
and they're, they're providing that information about the same time.
okay, we'll just see how it works out. I'm fine. I mean, I just thinking, all the ones I've tried to work, I always try to get the easements at the front end done. Okay.
It's hard to do it that way, Jeff, because sometimes on site, the water main's not gonna go through there. Even though you approved it on the initial plan, sometimes things get changed.
I agree.
Extra house gets added and you have to wait till the very end, all the as-bills get there, all this stuff happens, and then you sell the meter, you give them the meter.
Yeah, we called that rescinding an easement. We did it a couple times that arose, but yeah, okay, no problem. I'm with you. Extension. Okay. Anybody else on page 34 there?
Nope.
Page 35. Yeah, we talked about DOH on that. One more page. Ooh, a two-liner page. I can handle that. I have nothing more.
Yeah. So, pretty good.
I do have a couple questions on one. It's doing, and it probably might have been answered by all the stuff we did tonight. This is dealing with the appendix that dealt with easements. Just take here. I'm reading it relative to now, everything we've discussed tonight. I'm thinking what got solved or didn't get solved. Easements. Oh. I don't have it, but well, now I'll probably have it. In your easement doc appendix, easement point one. Yeah, so. Bench agreement.
Where you at, Jeff?
Oh, I was, I didn't have the printed copy with me. It's in the easement exhibit, which. Maybe it's,
Appendix J.
Appendix J.
is that,
Within staff of Travis Stevens?
yeah,
Let's see.
man,
For you. Yeah.
Ooh, I think we have that.
okay, now I know where we are. So page 2 of the water utility easement agreement. And under terms and conditions, section 1. Near the end of that first paragraph. First of all, I agree with the whole principle, but it's also saying like structures, structures I get, landscaping I get, parked vehicles. I mean, you got vehicles parked all over your water line and my water line.
Yeah, well,
That happens.
Yeah, so I mean, do you really want that in this? In the easement? Because you're saying Gunter
What's the worst?
agrees that the easement area shall not be obstructed by landscaping, structures, parked vehicles, so on and so forth. And you got parked vehicles all across all the top.
We don't want structures on.
No, I get landscaping, same thing. I mean, you don't want roots growing in the water.
Yeah, don't want giant tree. Yeah, we don't want that.
What if they park an RV on there and put skirting around it permanently mounted?
Yeah, that's a problem.
I mean, vehicle, an RV is a recreational vehicle, so the word vehicle covers that.
There's people just parking a car, coming home from work, stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that
so
considered, I mean, is that,
maybe it should actually say, inoperable vehicles.
I don't get it, again, I read the meaning of that is, so if you have to do work, you can't just have a bunch of vehicles parked over that, they're gonna have to be able to be moved, so you can do work in the easement.
Sure.
That's why, again, that's why I interpret
And to
that,
me,
why that's in there.
To me, a parked vehicle isn't an obstruction because
Right.
everything else
So a
that is
vehicle-
labeling there is unmovable objects.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. So, okay, so next thing. So obviously, when we pave or when anybody paves in there, they're gonna have to talk to you.
Yeah,
Okay?
if they pave.
Fair. So, let me see. So there was something in grading. So like, I grade those roads, some of those roads have utilities in them. Just, it's crushed rock, to get the potholes out. Am I meeting up with you? I'll just cover it with you each time, let you know I'm grading. That's fine.
Really, I mean, paving is, if somebody pays to pave and then it has to be torn up because we have to maintain the line.
You just repair the asphalt.
Yeah, we just repair the asphalt, the port would be responsible for that. in my
Okay,
opinion.
and any utility, gas companies, everybody else, they come through, they cut
Yeah.
they cut it and they repair it.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's what I've seen too. Science versus number 13, number 4 versus number 14. There was something that was looked like to me contradictory, but maybe it was how I was reading it. This agreement is Christian. It's 4's that way, and 13, what was the deal? There was something that. Okay, so this may be for lack of knowledge I have. So you got this number 13 and you got number four in the easement. To me, they seem counter to each other. And in particular, with number 4, the agreement and easement created herein and all rights associated within or wherewith shall be considered and constructed as covenants running with the land and shall be binding upon the successors and assigns, okay? And yet over here, we're saying on 13 that the agreement cannot be assigned by the grantor. Or at least it gives the appearance of that. Maybe I'm misreading something.
What's it say? We don't have it, so.
Hmm?
What's it say?
Oh.
We don't have it, so
Oh, it's in the pile. Okay, I'm
we don't
sorry.
have a copy of it.
Okay, 13 says under assignment. This agreement and the easement granted herein may not be assigned by the grantor unless such assignment is authorized in writing by the purveyor. Okay, to me, that's clear. It's clear. Then in 4, this agreement and the easement created herein and all rights associated therewith shall be considered and construed as covenants running with the land and shall be binding upon and inured and extended to the benefit of the successors and assigns of parties to this agreement.
So I look at that as basically you can't give the PUD an easement. You can't pass that easement off to the PUD, but that they can give access to that without their approval. But now when you sell the property, that's
But-
going to the grantor and the grantor is giving
But
that.
this easement's a non-exclusive agreement, easement.
Well, I'd say, I mean, say you want to give me I want to run a cable line from this
So-
house to this house.
So,
You can't pass that easement on to me, so I can dig up the road and put a cable from this house to this house without the port's permission. But now if you're selling the property, that easement you're talking about goes with that property
Right.
into you're the grantor giving that easement is assigned to that property and goes with it on sale.
okay, I'll buy that for sake of argument for the sake, okay?
That's how I interpret it.
Okay, so question. The road maintenance has created a bunch of easements up there, Travis. How's this all gonna? Which allows people, in other words, take Blackwell Street. Most of it's got easements already assigned to it. All 60 feet of it for work,
Right.
originally for water and everything else, but also for road maintenance, for power, and it names PUD, names the county, names the different parties. Does not name the port because of past history. And another time and era when battle lines.
My understanding is legal advisors would recommend that we get it in the port's name. So it sounds like we'd have to file new easements.
We've
New recordings.
always operated it. There's a utility easement there.
There's,
For like when the roads are going in there
Yeah.
and stuff, there's a utility. We just go in there, period. It doesn't have to be our little section of the utility easement. We have to get into easement problems when we gotta put a water main through the side of this guy's property, then all that.
see,
aspect with it.
technically in the plat, that's what.
So I guess my experience is basically, this is a house, this is part of our
No, no.
HOA. This is a house outside the HOA.
No.
The PUD, this
Yeah.
guy wanted more
No, I
power.
know.
So the PUD wanted to dig a trench from the
Yeah.
pole here
Yeah.
and go through our easement,
Yeah.
the utility easement for the HOA
Yeah.
and go to this house. And we said, no, that easement is for our easement. That's not for this guy's easement over here. It's an easement for utilities, but it's for our plot,
Okay.
not this guy over
But
here.
we-
So we denied him.
Yeah.
He fought it, and our attorney reviewed it and said, no, we don't have to grant that
Right.
access to him.
But we didn't pick that battle that way with us because there was no HOA. And there were a bunch of private roads.
Would follow the prescriptive easements. So long.
You get into that one eventually.
Maybe that, I mean, it's been over in the ground for more than 10 years, right?
My stuff or your stuff?
Your stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Well, then,
But not all of it. Most of it. I'll say 75%'s been 10 years or more.
maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, okay.
You can ask them about it.
You just don't want to make a problem. I just want to keep from having a problem. And that's all I have. Because that's all the time I had.
We still got the rate schedule, and then there was something with some graphs for some power usage or something, is that what you get?
Yeah, that's gonna, Travis just got us updated things and what that's doing, what I asked Travis to do is to hold on to the pump. It seemed unusual to lose a pump in 3 years. And so it's like, okay, here's a perfect thing for the committee to, ponder, what should we be doing? In other words, in my mind, it's like we need to look at the electrical. The first thing we can determine is that the way the labeling of the electrical was, it was backwards. The park was labeled as the well and the well was labeled as the park. So we got that straightened out today because Travis was showing me the reports. I said, God, there's got to be surges. I mean, the pump's coming on.
The way I understood it, and I know very, very, very grapevine stuff, but
Yeah.
The pump was having a communication problem or something, and it was coming on and off cycling short cycles. Is that accurate? That will kill a pump extremely fast if
Right.
it's doing that. And if it was doing that, that's what took your life of the pump
Yeah.
itself.
And we just had that pump go out.
Well-
And if power surges do that,
Oh, yeah.
because that's what he's
Yeah.
coming. You're coming the pre-D's power surges up in there, and it messed with the drive. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
tripped
just a
out a
bad
couple
deal.
times, and it said on the computer thing, it said power surge or
Most
something.
of the time, it's a communication problem or something that's happening for, tell the well to come on, but yes.
With what Travis just sent us this afternoon, I need to further break it out a little bit further, but doesn't appear it might be doing the issue of what you're saying, that's cycling on, cycling off, because there's like a solid period, but there's gaps, like 15-minute gaps in it. You know what I'm saying? And the way that was supposed to originally set up is either duration or pressure, one of the two, over the years.
That'll kill a pump. The other thing is the power is very dirty, they call it.
Right.
We've had issues with this. West Sound Utilities just lost one of their main wells over there. And they're having what they call dirty water or power.
Yeah.
That it's surging, it's dropping off from what it should be voltage wise. When you start talking 480 volt stuff to run these
Yeah.
giant well motors and stuff, it's very important that that's constant and real. And that killed their pump.
Right.
And that's coming from the power company itself, and it's a problem.
Got it described to me as a possibility of needing a signal conditioner. You put in line that literally cleans the power up before it gets to the drive.
Yeah, it's a thing. I haven't heard of that.
No,
yeah,
but
power's-
in the world where I come in the electronic manufacturing, we're used to signal conditioners. That's gonna have to be, I mean, if you go down that route for that, that's a pretty beefy setup. Cause I mean, right off the bat, that's 10 kilowatt.
I would say communication is probably, we need to start there for sure, to make sure it's communicating well and that the parameters are set up so the pump can come on and run for a relatively real period of time and then shut back off and relax.
Right.
And transducers just. Sand separator may not be the best way to tell the pump to come on and off. It may need to have a signal transducer from the actual well.
Right.
The storage tank.
Right.
Coming back down.
I agree with that system. I totally agree with that system.
That's originally what was designed, but when they started putting in the line, they made a judgment call in mid-flight and stopped putting that signal, that control signal.
Think that it sounds like from the conversations with the engineer that, that's really the way that we should be going forward. I've had, conversations with Jim about it too. There's no cleaner way to tell the pump to come on and off other than knowing exactly what's going on at the tank.
Yeah.
And then tell the system to pump, turn on for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Fill the tank.
Yeah.
Shut off.
Right.
And I don't see that happening. It's still having problems.
Oh.
This has been back and forth a couple of times, doing a few different changes on it. So
Yeah.
in fact, I'm gonna go out there and look at it before I leave tonight. See what's going on.
I don't think it's overly expensive to put a little antenna up there and stuff.
No.
We went through and did it
Yeah.
and it wasn't crazy. We had phone lines before, everything's done off of pressure.
Yeah.
And then the transducer turns that into
Yeah.
electronic.
I
It
agree.
was pretty straightforward.
I agree.
But we went to radio and we've had zero trouble and
Yeah.
it wasn't crazy money. And one of our wells runs on a 4 or 5/10 of a foot is all.
Yeah.
And it kicks on 4 times a day and it runs for about an hour, hour and a half or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's great. We've had zero issues.
No, I totally agree with that. The main thing is I always get, the maintenance side of me always gets excited when, concerned when two things fail, fail.
I say dirty power is a thing.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying before you sort of throw in the towel on everything, what you got there is like, okay, let's see, it may be dirty power, maybe any number of things. But, is the bearing still fine? Is it continuity of it still fine or not, It just, because I was in purchasing and maintenance side, that side always fight, because I was fighting with the engineers always service wise, because people just wanted to come in, replace, go and be done. When in reality, we needed to solve a problem and solve the problem, not just replace stuff. So that's always my,
Right.
my background.
I would consider it not replacing anything. Let's kind of
Yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah,
Let's upgrade. Let's get a signal in here. Let's see what's going on. I think we could
yeah.
control it that way.
Okay, and then lastly on the agenda there is the discussion about moving the regular meeting frequency. Reason I put it on there as a discussion is because I have most of the job of making sure we schedule meetings. And some factors here at the port have just destroyed my ability to get much done, at least currently. It's hard to schedule all the meetings I do with port and everything else, plus deal with a broken foot maintenance manager and we'll go out. And then that darn house over there is gonna drive me crazy here in the next few weeks. But I would like to set it up so that we have our regular meetings quarterly, and then we put together special meetings in between. So we just have particular topics that we come to the meeting for. So we don't have a 2-hour meeting.
Right.
We literally have an hour meeting where we discuss 2 topics that end up taking as long as it does.
Right.
Because we don't want to be here any later than we are today.
No,
Yeah.
I don't.
They're gonna move to Wednesday, right?
Yeah, we're still moved to Wednesday for our regular meetings, and then we just put them on a quarterly basis, but then we would have smaller meetings that were targeted towards single topics.
Yeah.
So that we could get.
I'm fine as long as, like I said, I'm okay with just knowing that, what is it, they're gonna be the last Wednesday of the month or the third Wednesday of the month? What do you guys want?
Oh, no, the first Wednesday of the month.
First Wednesday of the month.
First Wednesday
And
of the
then
month.
I'm fine with just making sure I'm available that time. And then if we're having a meeting, as long as you let us know what's going on.
And
I'm
if we're
fine.
gonna have a special meeting in between, it would always be on a Wednesday and
The first Wednesday of the month or another.
for our regular
Yeah.
meetings. But then if we had something come up in between.
Yep.
Say the third Wednesday of the month, hey, I really need to have a special meeting, get a hold of you the week before. We got this one topic, I've got all the information on it, let's hold the meeting.
I'm basically game for that. So the reason we had it Tuesday For today? What was?
Yeah, we had a Tuesday for today because I called everybody and said, hey, can we do it Tuesday? Because Tuesday's one day closer than Wednesday, and this is like the biggest topic on my
Okay.
table.
Now-
It's a heavy lift.
And I was busy, and I'm busy this Wednesday.
I've got.
This is a third Wednesday of the month. This is a third Wednesday of the month. I have another meeting.
Okay, okay, so we are going to meet then quarterly with regular meetings and then have special meetings on Wednesdays, first Wednesdays of the month, if they should come up in between. Okay, everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
I'm sure traffic, you know.
Okay, we'll
Um,
adjourn the meeting. Thank you. There. Wait till it's